This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, hope all is going well. 4th of July weekend is upon us. Of course, by the time we post this on a Monday, 4th of July weekend will be behind us, but nevertheless, hope you had fun. Hope everything was safe. And whatever you did was enjoyable, family, friends, and all that. And of course, if you traveled, hope you didn't have too difficult a time out there on the roads, or even if you were in an airport. And let us know how things are out there. You know, now that we're all venturing out, I wouldn't necessarily say that we're dropping our masks, but we're getting a little looser. And we're allowed to have a little bit more fun right now, which I think is a good thing. Let us know how things went. Contact us on our social media properties, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And also reach out to make yourself a guest. You know, I sound like a broken record every week, but it is absolutely true. We have 52 weeks in a year. We post a new episode every week. That's 52 new guests that we want to talk to every year. You should be one of them. And if you have a perspective on the way news gets made, whether you are a PR professional, whether you are a reporter, an editor, a photographer, videographer, or you're someone who utilizes PR in your day-to-day, like our guest today, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your perspectives. We want to hear your wins, your fails, because the whole reason that we're here every week is to share best practices, to share what we've done, what we like, what we didn't like, and how to make this whole thing that we do, that we call public relations and newsmaking, just a little bit better. Speaking of guests, we are joined by another special guest this week, and someone close to my heart, so let's get right into it. Sara Lipsky is the former executive director for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of the New York Metro region, where she led that organization to new fundraising heights as they work to find a cure for blood cancers worldwide. She is personally responsible for raising, get this, more than $75 million over her 16 years at that organization. That is just a mind-blowing statistic. She is an exceptionally talented leader and motivator. Big guess as to how she was able to raise $75 million. She's also experienced in board development and volunteer engagement. And she is also, like I said, a terrific person and someone whom I can talk with all day long. Sara, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you, Jody. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. This is way overdue because like we said before we got started, I caught a post that you did on social media the other day, and I said, wait a minute, I haven't had Sara on yet. I've got to get her on here. And we have you on for a really specific reason, because you and I have worked together. And you've utilized public relations in your leadership of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And so we wanted to get your perspective on how you use public relations, what you look to public relations for, and how it helped you to achieve the business objectives, let's call them, that you were trying to achieve. So first, let's just talk about you and your work in the nonprofit sector. What drew you to your work being in a nonprofit?
So actually, like you, I started out in public relations, and yay. And one of my clients was the Jimmy V Foundation. So Jim Valvano, who's the famous NC State basketball coach who sadly passed from brain cancer many years ago, gave this very famous speech about never giving up. And I saw that and met his family and was hooked. I was like, this is what I want to be doing. And so that was my cue, and went from there to write it into nonprofit, and made my way previously a couple of other organizations, a grassroots organization in Israel, and then MS Society, and then landed finally at Leukemia Lymphoma Society.
Leading a nonprofit, or working in the nonprofit sector, I guess is kind of like working in PR. You know, you have to earn it every single day. You don't get to punch a clock. There is a paycheck, but the paycheck's got to come from the money you raise, right? There's no mystery bank in the back where you're getting your money, where you're hustling, right, every single day. So give us a flavor for what it's like to sit in that chair leading a nonprofit, where you've got to motivate people, you've got to go out and raise money. And then you've got to also turn that money into programs, tangible programs that make people that both advance the mission of the organization and make people want to donate more. I mean, what is it like
Yeah.
to sit in that chair?
It was really fun. And I think, at the end of the day, what makes, I think most jobs so much fun are the people that you surround yourself by. So from the staff to volunteers, it's one collective team, and that's what makes us all tick. Now, of course, there's all these different strategies to making that happen, but at the end of the day, that's what certainly fueled me in our success.
Being motivated at any organization really comes from the top down. And so people in an organization look to the leader of that organization to kind of motivate them. Did you have any motivational tactics or strategies that you used with your team, other than the fact that they loved you? Because I've met them all and I know that they
Oh my
loved you
God.
so much. But are there any tactics or strategies that you use it as being the leader to motivate a team?
Um, I don't think that there's any one single thing. I think it's about creating a healthy environment of respect and listening to each other and making everyone part of whether it's setting a goal and setting the strategy and how we're going to get to that goal. So I think it's there are so many different things that go into making it all work. So I can't say, hey, this is the one thing and that I did that made us work so well. I think it was really a collective team effort. And I don't like this term. I'm trying to find a better one these days. But, for me, it was about servant leadership. Like, what can I be doing to make sure that my team is successful? And I think that was always a constant for me. Like, what does the team need? Whether that's volunteer team or whether that's staff team, what resources do they need that I can go and get or figure out or provide for them that's going to make them successful in what they are setting out to do for themselves and for the organization.
A big part of what I saw you do at LLS in the few years that we worked together while you were there is events based, right? Whether it's simple receptions, donor receptions, and things like that, or whether it's more complicated things like your Light the Night event, which is a major fundraising event for you, but also a major logistical event. What goes into from a leadership position, creating an event like that, but then executing an event like that and making sure that it reaches all the goals that it means to reach? It's one thing to have the event and okay, great. The PA system worked and the t-shirts arrived. And it's another thing to actually walk away and calling that event a success. What kind of bar do you use to sort of measure success in an event like that?
Yeah. So we always said, and Light the Night, which is Leukemia Lymphoma Society's annual walk, and the single largest event in terms of number of people that we hold. We always said that retention starts the night of the walk. So our goal essentially was to make sure that every single person who came to that walk and experienced it walked away saying, I need to do that again next year, right? That's the ultimate goal. I mean, obviously there's fundraising goals around it, but the experience is the most important thing, I think. And when I say experience too, it's not just the experience of the actual events. There's so much that goes into the volunteer efforts behind the scenes. I'm sorry, that is the landscaper that you probably hear right now.
We have an authentic podcast. We really, really do.
Work from home.
There's no fancy studio here.
Exactly. So I was saying that, what takes so much of leading up to the walk is all this volunteerism and their energies and producing a fantastic event along with the staff team. And that experience in and of itself is such a big part of it. So if they're feeling like they're supported and they have the tools and the resources they need, then that's going to ultimately lead to their successful fundraising and outreach and so on and so forth. and then have an amazing experience at night of. So I think the whole experience when a volunteer walks through any organization's door is crucial to what that means in terms of end support, donation, involvement.
So let's segue, that is a great explanation. So let's segue then into how public relations and in a broader sense, communications, right? Because when we think of PR, we really think about media. Let's broaden that definition of PR out for this conversation and just talk about messaging and communication, right? Getting to your audiences. How do you use that in the lead up, in the day of, or 24 36 hours around, and then in the days immediately, even weeks immediately following? How do you use communication and messaging to execute a great event like that?
It's so important. And I'll say, especially during times like this, during COVID, of how messages are getting communicated is so important, right? We're in this space of not doing, where we were for a while, not doing live events. And so how do we best communicate out? And then also now we're in the space of, well, some live events and some not. And so really I think you have to really be careful about thinking about your audience and who's going to receive this and how that could get perceived across the board. And I think that's whether it's talking about mass marketing, like mass messaging, or to small groups of people, it's very customized. So again, thinking back to like who your audience is, I think all of those big communications and small are essential to be looking at. How will this get perceived? And so, I mean, like any good business, LLS is run just like any good business. And so our approach has been a layered one, right? So social media, email communication, texting now, right? Like, so, and it's thinking about, we had students as an audience. How do students communicate, right? And we had to really think about texting is the way that they go. So, okay, then our text messages have to look different, and the tone and the feel, all of that. So I think it's really thinking about who your audience is and how are they going to best receive it, and actually read it and pay attention to it, whether it's, video or whatever.
You sound like a PR person.
But I learned from the best.
But it's the truth, right? It's the truth. I mean, messaging is so important. And I've got to imagine, especially in a case like we're talking about here, the call to action is so important in the messages that you're pushing out and sort of giving people that avenue. And these days we think of it as a link, right? Something they can click and go to and take an action. Did you integrate those types of calls to action into your messaging when in whatever you pushed out, whether it was a text or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think, people tease me all the time because I always ask the question, what's your goal here? Right? Like, and that's whether it's communication or something else. And so I want to look at something and whatever kind of communication it is and understand like, oh, this is the intent of that, whether it's to take some action, to follow up. But yes, there's usually some call to action within some communication piece. It's going to be really crucial.
That can be dicey though, especially with a nonprofit, right? You don't want to always be asking for money. And I've worked with other nonprofits that have wanted to constantly put that donate now message into every communication. And I've cautioned them and I've said, no, you can't be asking for money every single time you go out. You've got to balance it and maybe give something. Here's a resource, or here's something interesting. Here's a story. Here's a video. Here's a something. And then like every third message you go, donate now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And I think when I think of call to action too, I think of like, read this story about the impact that your donation had on our organization, right? Watch this video, post why this organization, why this whatever means so much to you. Those stories then fuel it. And there's also that sense of them giving back and a piece of themselves in a different way. And that's beyond that monetary. And it becomes to the point of they actually feel like they matter and they're part of the mission. And it's not just, oh, I only matter because I write a check. It's I matter because my story is helping to shape the direction of the organization.
Wow, that is so powerful. I'm so glad you said that. Making people feel like they're part of the tribe, making people feel like they have a reason to show up and to contribute whatever it is they can contribute. And sometimes it's cash, sure, but more often than not, it's rolling up their sleeves, it's the getting involved, it's the staffing the event, or it's the coming to the reception, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really big piece is that creating community at the end of the day. Like, how do you create a community where someone feels really part of something in a significant manner?
And you also mentioned about storytelling. And let's segue back to PR because you and I did a lot of this for LLS together. There are so many compelling and frankly heart-wrenching stories and you worked with children who were going through chemo treatments and cancer treatments. Um, so many wonderful stories that bubble up in the work that you've done. How or what kind of reactions would you get? I'm thinking I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. What kind of reactions did you get when you told those stories, when you
Oh my
told those
God.
success stories?
The traction on those stories were incredible, right? And the expectation was never we're going to raise more money. This is about, again, feeling connected to a mission that you believe in, or if you are not part of that, it's opening your eyes to a mission that you didn't even know existed. So I think, there was such benefit whenever, I think back to some of the I know one time we made Charles a police officer for a day, and the whole community really rallied around it. All of the police officers, that personal escort he got to the police center,
The
what's the name?
sheriff's office.
The
Yeah,
sheriff's
right. Yeah,
office.
absolutely.
And the traction on that got picked up like crazy. And it's because we were telling an incredible story about this young boy who survived something that was up against so many odds, and what he went through and how he pulled through in the end, and how he has a community, back to the community, around him to support him. And it's local, so you feel like, oh, this is in my backyard. I know that town, I know that sheriff's office, right? And so that's, you really become more connected to the mission, or you learn about it if you haven't, if you're not familiar with it already.
That makes me think of something that I caution clients about all the time, which is, when they plop down in the chair across the table from me and they say, we need to be in the New York Times, or we need to be on CNN, or the big outlets, right? The big
Yeah.
national outlets. And I take a pause and I ask a similar kind of question that you ask, which is why? Is that where your audience is?
Yeah.
And more often than not, and I think you and I did this very well together, your audience was not on CNN. Your audience was, for our purposes, on Long Island in Nassau and Suffolk County. And so the majority of the press that we did was centered in the New York City region, right? It was, yes, it
Yes.
was all the New York City stations and things like that, but it was also the Long Island market because, as you said, and let's take the Sheriff for a Day example. Here's a boy who's locally living on Long Island with his family. We did a localized event. We got lots of localized press, but that created traction that I'm sure generated lots of interest, whether or not it generated donations, but lots of interest and lots of incoming to your organization, right?
Yeah. And I think that's I see that at times organizations making that mistake, like, what will this translate to in dollars, right? And I don't think it's definitely not, you can't, it's not something that you can measure in donations. It's more about the awareness piece. And what awareness does is make people obviously aware of the organization, the mission. And so then they may be more inclined to get involved. Or if, like the boy at the sheriff's office, it was tied around our local Light the Night, and maybe that got participation to, because we did it so close together, and that increased participation. So I think it's not a hard and fast. There's no straight line there. It's a zigzag.
Without a doubt. And I always caution clients too that PR does not draw a direct line to your cash register.
Yeah.
I'm missing the phrase here, but it's a misconception
Yeah.
about the result of what communication in general does. Communication
Yeah.
is not necessarily meant to rack up sales or
Right.
rack up donations or whatever that metric is. It's really all about exposure, exposing
engagement.
people and engaging with people. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, you sound like a PR person.
Like I said, I work from the best.
We get along so well. Well, this has been a great conversation, Sara. Thank you for sharing all these perspectives about your work and what you do. You are such an asset to the nonprofit community, and so I'm really glad to know you, and I'm really glad that we work together. So thank you.
And Jody, you know how I feel about your work, and I think what I've seen you do for organizations is nothing short of remarkable. Obviously, I saw it for myself firsthand at Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and so I always tell anyone I talk to is that you got to talk to him. Talk to Jody.
Thank you. Well, we are going to segue into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast here. And this is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio and ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit just a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. So Sara, with your indulgence, let's begin. Rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
NPR.
Good one. Really good one. All right.
I'm an avid listener.
They've got some of the best news programming around.
They really
do. Such a
do.
variety. I don't know if you listen to the podcast. Such a variety. Of
I do.
Oh my God.
My favorite is Snap Judgment.
Good one. Good one.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Rapid fire question number 2. What is your favorite social media platform?
Ooh, I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn these days, so I'll say LinkedIn, but I don't know. I really also sometimes I have a love-hate with social media.
I think we all do. All right. Easier question. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Oh, I thought you were going to say coffee or tea. And then I was like, bam, it's coffee. Can't live without either one.
Very good. Honesty. Points for honesty. Very good. Rapid fire question number 4. What is your favorite on the run food?
It's I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's my go-to, RX bars.
We hear that a lot, right? Everybody's got the bar in their bag or in their backpack or whatever. Yeah, very smart.
Protein, healthy,
That's when you got a real on the run person when they're carrying the bars. They're a road warrior.
Yeah.
All right. Rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is the navel gazing one.
I don't know if it's a B, but it's a B in sense of just content and happy and be able to look back on what I did and with really such pride.
Well, I think you've got a very good start on that goal.
Thanks.
Sara, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online on that wonderful social media network that you have.
I
LinkedIn,
don't even know
right?
my tags at Sara Mel on Instagram and LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is the place we can find you. All right. Sounds good. Well, Sara, thank you again. Really appreciate you spending time with us here and talking about the nonprofit industry. And thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and online at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.